Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. This week, not one, but two very special guests and two New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famers. First, we have one half of the Boston Bulldogs here in the New England scene, the Ripper, Rip Morrison. And of course, we have another great New England star, Mr. Maverick Wild.
Woo! I know.
Guys, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking the time today.
No problem.
So let's rewind. Go to the very beginning for both of you here. This question's for the two of you. So, growing up as children or young adults, when did you first discover pro wrestling? Who were some of your favorites growing up? And we'll start with you, Rip.
Oh boy. I was at a birthday party for a friend. I think we were like fourth grade, maybe fifth grade. Brian Lavin was his name. Good kid. He invited me to his birthday party, and kids were running in and out of the house and stuff, summertime, and then I go in the house and I see this on the TV, and I'm like, what? So I don't know if the father or somebody was watching it, and it was the old Dallas tapes. It was actually it was one of the Von Erichs, I think, at the time, working with Flair, I think, or maybe not. It was definitely a Dallas tape, though, because I remember the Sportatorium intro, that just stuck in my head like. Anyway, so
Unforgettable.
So that stuck with me, man. And then I started to look into it more. And my favorite was actually the British Bulldogs. And I'm not saying that's where we got the Boston Bulldogs derivative from at all. British Bulldogs, but Dynamite Kid was my favorite.
How about you, Mav?
So we used to. I had a grandmother with a great grandmother with dementia. We used to go over her house all the time, and one of the things that would always grab her attention was my parents we'd go over there on Sundays, and I think it was a challenge, or it would have been All Stars actually when it first started off. In the early '80s, it would have been. I remember going over there, and I remember watching Rick Martel and Tony Garea. Working with the Moondogs, and I love those matches. I loved Rick Martel. I liked their product was a little. At first, I started watching what they had, and a lot of it was old New York slow thumpers. Not really my style. But then you see somebody like Rick Martel in there. It's like, nah, that's more my style. That was really what got into me. It's still my favorite tag team to this day is Rick Martel and Tony Garea.
Can't go wrong with them. Two future Hall of Famers.
We're definitely dating ourselves. This sucks. Oh, shit.
So at what point was it that you both went to your first show, as a fan? When did you first attend? Where was it?
For me, let me think. My first show I ever went to was at the Wallace Civic Center in Fitchburg. I believe that was during both Lanny Poffo and Randy Savage's debut coming into the World Wrestling Federation. There was more violence in the stands. Fitchburg was always known as a rockin' little town. There were a lot of angry Latinos in the crowd. Let's just put it that way. A lot of fights. It was really exciting to watch. And then the next one I went to actually was over at the old Sullivan Stadium. That might actually have been before it, now that I'm thinking about it. That was a weird Don Morocco match. I think he wrestled Don Morocco and the Iron Sheik, of all people, as a heel match. It was cool. Yeah.
Oh.
But that was, kind of how I started watching it live.
Excellent. How about you, Rip?
I don't remember ever going to a live match.
Oh, okay.
I got to tell you, I honestly, my neighbors, like I grew up, we weren't poor by any stretch, you know what I mean? But when I grew up, I love my dad. For all his faults and for all his wisdom and for all his greatness. Um, he had me very late in life, so he was done being a dad by the time I came around. You know what I mean? I didn't go any. Like he didn't take. Like he would take me to bars. I'd go to bars when I was a kid, and I'd learn how to shoot pool, and I'd play jukebox and Space Invaders with gang members, bike riders. The we won't get into that. Yeah. So like, my neighbors, Scott Parker, John Parker, the Parker family, they're like my family now. They're like, they are. I don't have, anybody really to speak of. My brother, I haven't seen in a while, and I haven't seen my sister in a long time. But they've always been like second family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they might have taken me to one of the matches at the Providence Civic Center, but I can't remember. Like I can't remember. I can't put my thing on. So the only one I know I've been at was at the Seekonk American Legion Hall, and Bob Evans was there, and Brian Bregner was there. The Scorpion. Was it Bregner's last name?
Brian Brieger.
Bregner.
Is that Renegade Wrestling?
The Scorpion. Great guy, man. Funny, immensely talented, entertaining. I hit it off with him really, really fast, and I actually liked him a lot. I could say I gotta take a bullet for that guy. He was instrumental in getting me in starting in wrestling, and then he's got out of wrestling like within a year of me getting in. He got out, and we kind of parted ways. I think he went down south, down up towards Florida early on, and I stayed up north here, obviously. Kind of lost touch over the years. I wonder how he's doing. I love the guy. But anyway, I digress. So I think that was my first match I can remember, and that was maybe 2 months after I got I came home from the Gulf War, and I was pretty fucked up. I was drinking a lot. I was self-medicating a lot. You can only see so much of that, war shit before it gets to you as a young kid, But I got there, and I was in the crowd, and I was watching. I was like, "This is pretty cool, man." I'm like 5 rows from guys of like 5 feet from the freaking ring, and I thought it was amazing. I liked it. And after the matches, I think the guy who ran it was Nick Steele, and his dad. Nick was a kid, man. He was like 16, 17, I think. And his dad was running it. And I think, Brian, and I don't think Bob didn't come up to me. Brian did. He came up to me and he says, "Have you ever thought about being a pro wrestler?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, I've always thought it was really, really cool. And he gave me a phone number and said, "Call me if you're interested and come out for a tryout." So I did. I drove to some place out in north of Fall River. Can't remember what it was, but they had like a commercial grade commercial warehouse space, and it could barely fit the ring in there. One of those.
Sure.
And he just brought me in there, and he just started immediately working me, backed me into the ropes, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. I hit the ropes, and he came at me, and he said, "Duck this," and I ducked it. I came out the ropes again, and then he did something to me, and then I threw myself back, because I was always wrestling with my buddy Scott and in high school and shit, taking bumps on mats and stuff. So he hit me with something. Oh, he hit me with an elbow. That's what it was. He hit me with an elbow. He threw me off the ropes. He said, "Duck this." Came back, and he said, "All right, go down." And he hit me with an elbow, and I took a bump, and it was like, and he told me, he's like, "That was the crispest bump," he said, "I think I've ever seen." And he said, "And you'd never been in a wrestling ring before." He said, "So I knew you had it in you. I knew you had it in you." That was my beginning of wrestling, and then I worked with them for a while. Then I worked with Jeff and them for a little while, and then I just
Uh-oh.
Oh,
He's froze.
freezy.
Oh, he's frozen.
nope,
Well,
lost everybody for a second there.
There you go.
All right, yeah, I lost everybody for a second there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're
then I primarily worked with Jeff. I did a couple of odd spots here and there, some other spot shows, and then once I'd been with Jeff, I started working overseas a little bit. Started doing some stuff in Puerto Rico and Mexico, stuff like that. But initially, when I first started out, that was it. I took that answer way too long. I apologize. Feel free to cut it up in the editing room, boys. Shit can as much as you feel free.
So Brian was influential in getting you, the right track to get into the business. How about for you, Mav? How did you go about getting into the business?
So I went to my first independent show in Gardner, Massachusetts. Walter Kowalski used to run a guaranteed show there for the Police Athletic Union on a yearly basis. And so I came in here, an okay house, about 450, 500 people. And, some of the guys were okay, some were But then a guy named Chris Duffy and Brian Walsh came out, and they just tore the house down. And I'm like, I was there with my buddy. I'm like, I want to do this. I really want to do this.
Yeah.
So after the matches, I ended up bumping into in the parking lot Brian Walsh and a guy named Steve Driscoll. Steve Driscoll was a little infamous for making tapes that were marketed towards a fetish crowd, to be honest with you. I always bring that up, and I don't have anything against Steve. It's just what he did. And Brian was the real pro and was really talented. So I ended up training in their cellar in Braintree, actually.
Wow.
Brian Walsh used to come up when I first started up in Fall River. He used to go train up there, and that's how I met Brian. And by the way, I didn't interrupt you. Brian Walsh, one of the top 5 humans of all time.
Really? Yeah. And I've always thought that Brian was extremely talented wrestling wise. On top of being a really nice guy, he was extremely talented wrestling wise. He was just really small, but he did he did wrestle in Germany and England, so he had international experience. And I just absorbed everything I could from him. And then I just ended up hooking up with Joe Eugenio down in New Bedford because he was looking for guys. And at that point, I hate to say it, the Eugenio crew wasn't all that well trained at that point. So when I went down there, I kind of helped train guys to some degree and help try to improve things a little down there. And that's kind of how I get started. I was wrestling in that old warehouse spot, just like Rip was. Same deal. Probably goes on to this day down there. that kind of activity. Yeah.
Now, for me, I didn't get into the business until 1998. So, as a fan, I believe for Rip, the first time I saw you in person was the American Legion in Seacock, and it might have been Renegade Wrestling. I'm not too sure, but you were there, Johnny Royal, Bob Evans, the whole crew. From that time period. This was probably, I want to say 95, 96, somewhere in there. So that's the first time I had seen you as a fan. And then for Mav, first time I had seen you was the CWA, and this was at the Bristol Community College.
Oh,
this was
okay.
for Tony Rumble, and you may have wrestled Brian Walsh that night, but I'm not for certain.
I know. I remember this one was Bob Evans, actually, because that was Bob's alma mater. He was supposed to be the good guy, and they started doing too many fancy moves, and they started cheering me and booing him. True story.
So that was the first time I had seen you there. Yep.
Yes.
So let's talk about friendship. When did the friendship start for you guys? When did you first meet?
Oh man, we met at a who's the really nice guy that does the vending machine work up here?
That'd be Lou Bordeaux.
Lou Bordeaux. It was a Lou Bordeaux show.
Yeah.
And it was in Chelmsford, I think.
Haverhill.
Yeah,
yes.
And I walk in, and we're doing the Boston Bulldogs, and I see Mav. He's over there changing, like kind of diagonally across from me, and he's like belligerently berating like everybody that walks past him or anybody that walked through the door. He had a fucking, and he was like, and the arrogance of him was beyond. Like, I couldn't believe it. So I look over to Johnny. I wish he would come on one of these with me. And I nudge him and I go, Rob. I said, Johnny Royal, Rob Beth. I said, Rob. He said, what the fuck is that? He goes, oh, that's Scott. He knew you at that point. I didn't know you. And I was like, dude, that guy's a fucking asshole. He goes, oh no, you got to get to know him. And I'm like, fuck that. I ain't fucking know anybody that's that fucking dickhead. And then within a year, I would probably consider him. I mean, now I would consider him one of my best friends ever. I would die for Maverick, So
I just so everybody's clear, I don't make good first impressions or second impressions or perhaps even fifth impressions.
The first impression is like a jock itch. It's annoying, and if you fucking scratch at it too much, it really burns. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of leave him and you leave it alone, and you just hope it doesn't come back. That's what it is with him. You first meet him. But once you get to know him, there's no more loyal of a friend, a father, a husband, person. I would say the integrity that you just don't find in any, like I would say in almost anyone. He has a certain devotion and integrity to life, to his family, and to friendship, more so than probably anybody I know. There's been times where I've been in down, injuries, shit like that, and Maverick brought me back from the brink, many of them. He got me into a match. I had pretty much, I wasn't retired, but I was pretty much out of it. I had a lot of nagging injuries that basically left me to carry a 9mm Glock in the back room and just watch the gear, watch the money bag and work security, unofficial security sale, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every now and then, I knew some of the, at this point, I was calling guys and getting them to come in, and Maverick was handling the book, and I would either him or he was working full time at the time. So, I'd call some people and say, hey, we got a show a month from tomorrow. Can you make it? Yes. Okay. Hey, Mav, this guy's going to be there. This guy said he might be there. This guy said he can't be there. Okay. Put a card together. Maverick would put everything together, he would do everything in the dressing room. And it kind of led to, and then in the gym when we were training, I wasn't able to get in there and bump and show the guys as much stuff and work with guys. And guys that knew me back in the day knew I was tenacious and knew that I could bump with anybody. I would put my work up against anyone's. I worked hard when I was in there, and I expected that from the students that I had. But over time, it's like, you just can't do it. You just can't do it every single day. So Maverick was doing everything towards the end of everything there, and guys were losing respect for me a little bit. Not guys that I was close to, but some guys that didn't know me. So it'd be like a guy would come walk past, and I'd notice something, and I'd say, hey, maybe you should try this or try that, and it was completely done. I'm very polite. I'm very respectful, even if I don't know you, because that's just me.
Me too.
And yeah, you too. You're about as polite as a fucking foot in the mouth. But, but that's me. And guys would be like, oh, they'd yes me to death. And then, Maverick would pick up on these same guys. Guys would be in the back and they would talk, and Maverick would pick up on it, and it pissed him off. He didn't like the fact people were talking even remotely bad about me, because he's my friend, and he loves me.
Yeah.
So he talked me into a three match. I think it was 3 matches we had run.
Yes, it was. Yep.
It was like 3 matches. We did a little 3-match, exploratory effort when I was far past my days. I got in the gym. I worked out a little bit. I pushed myself really hard for a while, and we pulled out some matches that I had a good time with. I had a lot of fun with, and I don't have any. A lot of guys when they leave the business, they have what we call unfinished business. There's stuff that's just not settled. With me,
Yeah.
never had that. But that's when you have guys like Mav to work with to finish off your career when you're done. I mean, what else more? What more is there? What else? What else? Is there? And
Sure.
so yeah, I owe him a lot. I owe him a lot. I don't know where this question started, and I apologize.
That was
Again,
perfect.
boys in the edit room, feel free, clip away. I will not be insulted.
Now for Mav, early on, before you were Wild, you were Maverick Sykes, right?
Oh, that was there's a promoter named John McAdams who ran. He came up into New Hampshire in the early '90s,
He was great.
and yeah, well, I didn't get along with the guy. It's a common theme with me, by the way. I didn't really get along with the guy. He's like, I don't like your name. It sounds too silly. I'm gonna change it to Sykes. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. That's fine. So that's why I had that kind of Sykes name. I try and tell everybody I'm actually related to Wanda Sykes, but nobody gives a shit. It doesn't help. But that's where that silly name came from.
Okay.
John McAdams is still on that. Is that Vanguard network that like Jim Cornette is on and stuff? They're all part of that same broadcast family. John McAdams does all sorts of. He was a massive tape collector at one point, and he does he does a lot of podcasts and things about old wrestling.
Gotcha.
But that's where that came from.
And Rip, as far as some of your
met him, I was working the ring crew. I hadn't even had a match yet. And I drove the ring truck up to Nashua for they were renting out Nick's ring from his dad. And the van, the snowstorm. Remember that show? It was a snowstorm in Nashua, and just as we're pulling in to the gas station to fill up right near the Elks Lodge where it was, the van slid in the snow. And I wasn't even driving at the time. I think it was Nick's dad, or Nick was. And the thing slid, just slowly, just kept sliding. And the front radiator hit the side of the gas pump lodge, and it blew the radiator. So we were late getting there, and the guy comes up. I don't know who this guy is, right? I'm trying to get the ring set up, and I'm doing everything. And he comes like this far from my face and just starts screaming at me, like, "Where the hell you been?" And I'm like, "Whoa, dude, do I know you?" Like, "Whoa, wait, what's going on here?" I almost punched that guy for real.
So I wasn't on that show because it was snowing and I didn't like John. So.
It was predicted to be like, if the ring got there, you should have been there, mister.
If they predicted like a whole 2 inches of snow, and I didn't think he was worth that kind of effort. That sounds terrible, but I didn't end up at that show. But then I found out it was good that I didn't. That was a show that was responsible for the creation of the New Hampshire Boxing and Wrestling Commission, because somebody took a chair and whipped it over the crowd's head, and it slammed into the wall. And the owner of the building came out, took one look at the chair, grabbed the house microphone, and told everybody the show was over. Get out. And then he started calling people in the state, and that's how the boxing commission got involved in wrestling in New Hampshire.
I had no idea that.
You were part of a historic show, my friend.
See that?
So, Rip, let's talk about some of your earliest matches. Your earliest memories of, maybe your first handful of matches. What memories do you have from that time period?
Oh, they weren't good. No, I don't. No, you never leave the ring thinking you had the match. Like, oh, that was great. Some of my earlier matches, I started working. I started a couple of singles matches. My first match ever was at the Sandwich High School auditorium. It was a fundraiser for like a fire department or something, or rec or something. And there was about 500, 600 people there. It was a high school gymnasium. It was packed. It was
Boy, were you lulled in a false sense of security?
yeah, and I wasn't working hard. I was there setting up the ring again, right?
Yep.
And I was always told, Brian Breger told me, he's like, always have your gear with you. Always. You never know if someone's gonna need you. So I had my gear bag in the van, but I was setting up the ring. And I was working and I'm working, and Mav can probably attest to this over the years. I was always working on a fucking ring. Always working on a ring. Always. Oh, even when didn't matter if I was the main event, I was working. You know what I mean? So it was and hard work has never been an issue for me. I almost went to work for Mav's dad at his roofing company before and everything, but that's another story. And so I'm working the ring crew, and a guy smoking a cigarette walking by, and he noticed. He says, "How come you're doing all the work?" And I said, "Excuse me, sir," and I'm like cranking away on a come along or something. He's like, "How come you're the one doing all the work, and these other guys are here?" I said, "Well, I can't attest to them, sir. I said, I'm just trying to do my job, you know." And he's like, "Oh yeah." He says, "You a wrestler?" He didn't say worker. So initially, I'm thinking this is just a fan, like some guy there, and big belly, sort of, but you didn't have a big belly, but he had belly, and hair slicked back to a little ponytail. But I thought he was just a local. He said, "You a wrestler?" I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm breaking in." He says, "Oh," he says, "Well, come see me in the back." And I'm thinking, oh, maybe this is the promoter. Maybe he's going to throw me a couple extra bucks because I'm working hard on the ring, That's all I'm thinking. He says, "When you're done, come see me in the back." I said, "Oh, okay." So I'm thinking maybe I'll get some fucking money for fucking once, if I help it out. Because all I've been doing is doing all this stuff for free, which is kind of expected when you're paying your dues. You know what I mean? You work hard, you earn your keep, So I get in the back, and he's like, "You got your gear?" I said, "Yeah, oh yeah, always." And he says, "You told me you didn't have any matches yet?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I guess I probably should have." The technical answer is, I've had a handful at least. You never say you've never had a match, because then nobody wants to book you. And he said, "Well, you're booked now." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah." He says, "You're working with me tonight." So he said, "Go get your gear." So I'm fucking psyched. Now I'm like, I'm on this card, man. This fucking hundreds. This is my first match, Sandwich High School Auditorium, and fucking all these people. And get back there, and he says, "So what's your gimmick name?" I said, "Well, I've been kicking around a couple. Rip Morrison." He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, tonight you're Big Bad Pete Weeks from New York City." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, Big Bad Pete Weeks from New York City. He pulled a no-show, so you're him tonight." I said, "Okay, no problem." He says, and he liked how I was just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, I'm the worm slime tonight. Yep, no problem." I didn't care, And he says, "You got some gear?" I said, "Yeah." Showed him the gear. He said, "Oh, yeah, that'll work." And then he says, "All right, so just settle in. We got a little while to go." He said, "All right." He says, we're on last," he says. Again, I'm thinking last. That's like main event. So who is this guy? I don't know who this is. It was Chief Jules Strongbow, and it was his show. He was promoting it, and he just out of nowhere said, "Hey, you're working with me." And I asked him if he wanted to go over anything or what I did. He said, "I'll see you out there. It'll be okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't hurt me." It's like, okay, yeah, but do you want to do I can do this, I can do slam. No, I don't do that. I don't do that. I said, something, all right, this guy doesn't want to talk about anything. He doesn't do anything. And he said, "It'll be all right, and I'll see you out there. Just don't hurt me." I'm in the main event. No idea. And long story short, since I've already taken enough time, the match went great. I had a great time. It wasn't probably the best of matches, but his wife came up to me afterwards, and she said, "I've never seen you. I don't know who you are." She says, "But keep doing this, because you've got a career ahead of you if you want it." She says, "You're very good." And I was like taken back by that. I was like, I said, "This is my first match," and she said she couldn't believe it. She was awestruck when I said it was my first match ever. And I said, that's probably why you've never seen me, because this is my first match. So that gave me a little bit of boost, and then it came crashing down on my next match. But no, I'm just kidding. Next match was with Bob Evans and Seacock, I think, and then we formed the Bulldogs. I think we used to be Damage Incorporated. We're a tag team, Damage Inc. And then I met Jeff, and then he turned us into the Boston Bulldogs.
Okay.
That was
Now, for the two of you, let's talk about the evolution of the wrestling business. From maybe the time period where you guys broke into the business, and where it is now, and kind of walk us through what your opinions are on how the business has progressed, where it's gone and where it is now.
Well, on a local level, things have changed tremendously. I know when Rip broke in, and it was probably even a little more true when I broke in about 3 or 4 years before him. This area was dominated, and probably every area was dominated by certain little groups. They did their own thing. They didn't cross-pollinate. Walter had his guys, Walter Kowalski, and then a guy named Tommy Jeanette, who would run a lot of fair dates in the Northeast. He had his own crew. He used a few people from around here, but not too many. And Joe had his own guys that were all homegrown and trained. And there were a few others around. And it was very clannish and it was very cliquish. Really, things didn't open up with a plethora of promoters until you got to the mid 90s, or maybe to the late 90s, really, is when things really started exploding. And basically anybody who got a tax return and could afford a wrestling ring was going to run a wrestling show because they always wanted to. I was developed. Some of the guys are way better than they used to be, and some of the guys are way worse than they used to be on that level. It's an interesting contrast. It's all a matter of, it's all the same thing. The guy's going to get good if he takes it seriously and works hard. And if he doesn't, he's not going to get good. And you have that in the same percentages now, but, it's more pronounced because more people are able to get into it. So you'll have the up guys that are really got potential and really look good. You'll have more of a guy a little in the middle. And then there's, as for as many guys you got the really good talents up here, you got guys that are underneath there, and they don't take it very seriously, and they don't get any better at it. And it's like I said, you could work more places now. You can probably be busier because there's so many different places you can go work. But you have to be very careful where you go and who you work with at this point, because you could be working with somebody extremely talented, and you could be working with somebody extremely bad, and it's kind of hard to tell when you first meet them. So, as far as how the guys promote themselves and stuff, the opportunities to merchandise yourself on the smaller level these days, that didn't exist when me and Rip were wrestling for the most part. We might sell a T-shirt, or we might help, or
get some copy.
Or if we really wanted to make some money, say, hey Jeff, I want to buy some of the Mexican dolls with you, and can you give me a little percentage if I help pay for because Jeff used to go down to Mexico. Rip knows more about this, and buy all sorts of merchandise, masks, wrestling dolls, all sorts of stuff, very cheap. And he'd come back and he would sell them on the shows. And honestly, sometimes he'd make more money on the merchandise sales than the shows. So there was no room for me to merchandise a Maverick Wild #1 big foam fingertip. It just we didn't have those opportunities.
Yeah.
So if you wanna hustle on the independent level and you're good, you can eke out a living at it now. Where that was probably not going to happen with me and Rip. Rip made a living at it, but that was for different reasons.
Yep.
Any input on that, Rip?
I was in porn under Mike Hondo. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Just kidding. Sorry. Was that Farrell? That was not Farrell. The curly head guy joke. What's his name? Anyway. What Mav said. No, I agree everything wholeheartedly with Mav. I got a great story about coming back from Mexico, because I used to be the guy going down there to make the contacts in Mexico. I was the lead guy. I went down there initially by myself, made all the contacts, found all the promoters, found all the gear, merchandise and shit. The boot maker, I found a boot manufacturer down there, found all sorts of shit. And I came back from Mexico down by the southern border, and I had 2 military sea bags full of fucking wrestling dolls and action figures. And I was built back then. I was pretty big, you know. I was built like a brick shithouse. And I had these 2 bags on each one, 2 big sea bags, one over each shoulder, and I'm carrying another one like this going over the border. They thought I had steroids or guns or drugs. And all I had was these little plastic action figures and they were like, "What the hell's all this stuff?" And they said, "Oh, I got a lot of relatives, some kids, and my nieces, my nephews, and stuff like that. And I get these really cheap down here, and then I give them as birthday presents, Christmas presents, stuff like that, you know." And they're like, "Oh, that's pretty smart, man. That's pretty smart." And they let me through. And then I brought them back. And then that's not even counting the boxes of stuff that I mailed back to Jeff from Mexico. Oh my God! Yeah, we made a great little profit there. Jeff would pay for my flight. He'd pay for my lodging, rental car. He'd pay for everything. He'd send me down there, and then I would get all this stuff. He bought it all, and I'd mail it back to him, or I'd carry it back what I could carry back and fly across, whatever. And yeah, Jeff was smart. He was a good businessman. But anyway, go as far as the business goes, as far as its evolution, on the independent scene, if you will, I'm still more of I still prefer a Joey Eastman. I don't know if you're familiar with Joey.
Oh yeah.
I prefer a Joey Eastman match, watching him and some of the guys he works with, Doc Heresy, guys like that. Those are the types of matches that, if I had to do a conflict or not conflict contrasting, I could have just as much fun watching either or both. That's me though. As far as the pro, it's all pro wrestling, but you have different tiers, I guess.
Yeah.
So at the top tier, I guess you'd have your WWE, right? I've never watched it. I can't say. I watched it back, like when I was a fan of it when I was a kid, but once I got into the business, I just never watched it. I found it to be something that would distract me from the goal. Like
I don't mean to interfere here, but I remember Walter Kowalski used to tell everybody that when you went not to watch wrestling on television because it destroyed your creativity. You were just going to steal everybody else's stuff. Which if you did like I did and did jobs for a year on the road, was kind of a mixed advice because I didn't know how to take any of the guy's finishes.
All right, yeah, it made it much more difficult, I imagine.
What's a power bomb?
Yeah, a what?
Oh, that's a power bomb.
I put the blinders on, Joe, and I wanted to make it what it was. I didn't know. I just knew that if I stayed in here long enough and I worked hard enough, maybe I'd get to it. But to where it is now, I couldn't even really tell you. Yeah. I don't watch pay-per-views. I watch MMA. I watch boxing matches. I really don't. I watch football, NFL football, and that's about it. Hockey, love hockey, but I just don't watch pro wrestling.
Sure.
So I couldn't. All I know is like I see like some of the stuff like Joey will put clips on of some stuff, and I just think he is. I mean, him and I couldn't be further apart politically, but when it comes to wrestling, man, that kid is brilliant, and I love him, and I do anything for the kid, and we're really good. I think we're really good buddies. I think we are, but he's as close as you can be with Joey, man. He's all over the place. But anyway,
yeah,
that's another story. You should get Joey Eastman on here, man. He would boost up the rates like crazy.
Yeah, we had Joey last month.
You did?
Good.
Oh, I got to see that, man. I didn't see.
He did an interview as himself, a full episode, Joey Eastman, and then we did a funny overtime segment as Sidney Bacabella.
Oh, I got to see that, dude.
He won't come out of character. He will not break character when he's doing this. No.
Nope. He is brilliant. I think he is. I think he's brilliant. But anyway.
Well, let's talk about Jeff. You mentioned Jeff a few times. For the fans who aren't familiar with Jeff, we're talking about one of the great characters of New England pro wrestling. Of course, the Lobster Man, the Bruiser. Jeff Costa. Let's talk about your relationship, both of you, with Jeff over the years. He too is a New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, although I think he may have forgotten that. But you know, let's bring that up. Let's talk about it. How did you guys first meet and your interactions with him over the years, your friendship?
So mine was honestly, I was just happened to be driving through Nashua, New Hampshire, and I saw this poster, and the poster said Bulldog Johnny Royal versus Sexy Bob Evans in a losery in a boxing match. And I know who both of they were. I said, "Who the hell would put these two in a boxing match?" And I had been working for Joe for about 5 years, and I was like, "Well, it's probably time to go tackle a new adventure here." So I was looking for another place, and I was working some other shows in the area, and I think it was actually Sonny who recommended me to Jeff. He saw me on a show, and he recommended me to Jeff. Um, I met Jeff. I didn't know anything about him at the time. As I later learned, Jeff had a very extensive back history in professional wrestling. And one of the things I always respected about Jeff was a lot of guys stayed around here and tried to act like a big deal. And instead, he actually went places and didn't act like a big deal. If you catch my drift, I mean, some people, no offense to Sheldon Goldberg, it's great that I won the New England. It's great. It was great that I was promoted heavily with him, but it doesn't mean the same as some guy who is over, frankly, in another country, out actually making a living at it, and making decent money at it. And he did that all the way in Vancouver, a little in Portland and stuff, and occasionally he'd work over for Stu up in Stampede. So when he came back, nobody knew who the hell he was, because everything he had done had been on TV that nobody would have ever seen at that point. But I soon learned very quickly. I was like, this. I'm sorry, and this is no slight to anybody, even like Mike Hollow, who's doing that ID school right now. There's nobody more qualified to teach you about professional wrestling than Jeff Costa. It really nobody, and nobody in this area can do it. Sorry, he just has too much. He's too credentialed. Now, to know Jeff is and to love Jeff is to know how to deal with insanity. So, admittingly, maybe a lot of people would have a hard time getting what they needed out of Jeff, but for my money, he's the most knowledgeable guy about the actual function of professional wrestling matches, why you do things, when you do things of that nature. And because of it, I stuck with him for years, because every time I watched him work, I learned something new. And then if I worked with him, I learned even more new stuff, And he's a guy I just had a tremendous amount of respect for. He, for 2.5, 3 years, when nobody was making money in independent wrestling, he managed to do it, And I was like, and when I tell people that, they're like, well, I don't remember hearing about, crowds of 500-600 people. It's like, no, Jeff was a businessman. He knew how to do it with 150 people and then sell all those action figures. And, he knew how to make money off of a slow gate. So he was a genius, as far as I'm concerned. His nearest comparative in this area now would be probably Larry Huntley, who runs his business fairly similarly, But he was a genius as far as running local wrestling.
Eerily similar.
Yes. He was a genius when it came to running local wrestling. He knew the difference between what you could do on TV and what you could run on a live angle, which is something a lot of places never seem to get. A lot of places try and run TV angles and are only running once a month. It's hard to do that, So Jeff would just do very clear, definite one or two little angles on shows, and boom, he'd execute it on the next show or the show afterwards, and he'd leave a little something bubbling underneath. It was a good way to format a show locally, and he was a smart promoter, and he made money at it. And then Wolfman won the money, and then there was even more money into it. That's a different thing. I'll let Rip explain that one.
Anything to add to that, Rip?
I met Jeff. At this point, I had been working a couple of matches with Bob Evans. Johnny Royal was my partner at the time, doing the Bulldogs thing. And they were working with Randall Ripley, working out at the PAL Hall in Manchester, Policeman's League Hall. Randall had an inn there, and he would have the ring set up like all the time down there, and they would do boxing matches in there, I guess. But they would also, he would work out and have wrestling shows there periodically. So we were training. It was like in the afternoon or something, and I was up there and I see two guys sitting just watching us. It was Jeff Costa and it was Kevin Hughes. Now, I didn't know them from anything, right? And we're in there, we're just working out, and I think at one point one of the guys said, "Hey, those guys run shows up here, you know, so let's let's do some stuff here. Let's just not do our regular shit." So we put together like a little match, and I was taking bumps off the top rope and all sorts of fucking crazy shit, And then come to find out afterwards, Kevin Hughes, the butcher, rest his soul, man. He went over to Jeff and he's like, "You got to see these idiots. They'll take any bump. We got to." He pointed at me, I guess, and he said, "And that one there, they just do bumps to him all day. They just keep bumping him, and he'll take anything. You got to book him. You got to book them." So that was when I first met him. And then the first show we were on, they booked us. He says, "I ain't going to call you that damage, whatever. Damage and call. I'm not going to call you that up here." He says, "Let me ask you something. We're in the kitchen now, all right? We're in the kitchen and Hudson at the
Lions Club.
It was Richard's Catering Hall.
Yep.
Richard's Catering Hall in Hudson, New Hampshire, and we're in the kitchen, and he says, "Can you bark like a dog?" And I said, "That's kind of an odd thing." I said, "Can I bark?" He said, "Yeah." "Well, let me hear you." He gets in my face. "Well, let me hear it." So I go, "Hey, hey, 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 hey." And so he said, "That's perfect. Do that." Okay. "You guys are the Boston Bulldogs. I don't care what you call yourself. It's all right, buddy. It's all right. Don't be scared." My pit bull just came in here like ready to kill something. So that was the Boston Bulldogs. Then that was the birth of them, and that was Jeff asking me if I could bark. I later became very tight with Jeff and his family. I moved up here. I got very close then. I was the head trainer there for a long time with Jeff. And he was my family. Quite simple. He is my family, still is. He's dealing with some stuff in his life right now, and he's kicking ass, taking names, He was like a brother at times, a father at other times, a best friend at other times. He was completely he's borderline insane, but most genius people they have that in them. There's a little bit of maniacal something energy in a person.
Rip, let's be honest with you. You ever see somebody normal come in a dressing room and everybody looks at him and go, "What the hell is wrong with him?"
Yeah, so
he's well adjusted. He's going to get out of here.
Right. It got to the point where, when Maverick earlier was talking about how things were clanny and clicky and stuff of that nature, just because the man's dead, I'm not going to get into names or anything like that, but there was a rival promoter with a young lad.
Oh, I'm going to tell the story.
I had a lot of respect for it. You were there, weren't you?
I'm going to tell the story. I was there for this. All right.
Oh, good. Yeah, all right. You can tell it. Yeah.
Jeff bred loyalty. He really did. Where Rip looks at him like he was like a father figure and a brother. To me, he was more like that awesome crazy uncle that it came to Thanksgiving, and just all the other adults were like, "Oh Jesus Christ," and it was just liable to say anything. So we were promoting matches in New Hampshire, and Silvano Souza and Fred Sparta decided they were going to run in opposition because Jeff and Souza did not get along. There was a very long past history. I will not get into that history, but they kind of up and started running the area. Jesus, I'm losing my train of thought here.
We were at the pizza place.
Yes. Okay. So like I said before, there had been a commission now, and there was all sorts of accusations. He's tearing my posters down. He's trying to wreck my show. He's booking my guys. Yada, back and forth. And Steve Bradley was involved in this too, actually. So what ended up happening was we all went to a pizza place in Manchester, New Hampshire. It was Jeff, Rip, and me on one side, Souza and Steve Bradley on the other. And in between us was Bobby Stevens, who was the boxing commissioner, the head commissioner, and Steve Boucher, who was the wrestling end of things. And I don't know how the night precipitated, but it got to be very heated. And eventually Rip stood up, and I don't know what precipitated this, but he said, "Oh, I see. The problem is I still wrestle for Jeff." Okay, I see what it is. He stands up, goes into his pocket, goes into his wallet, and now we had actual licenses for the state of New Hampshire. He takes his license out, he rips it into a million pieces, he throws it in Dave Souza's face, and says, "There, now I'm not a wrestler anymore." And he looked at Dave Souza and said, "If you fuck with this guy one more time, I will fucking kill you."
Wow.
And yeah, he bred that kind of, but I just laughed because I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly, I don't think Susan knew that much about Jeff at the time, but Steve did. And Susan's like, not taking it seriously. And Steve's like, no, he may well kill us all. So why don't we calm down? And I don't even know what happened. They lost a bunch of money running the state, and they never came back. So, but that was the kind of, he bred that kind of loyalty.
I looked at Steve and I just looked at him and I remember Steve. I was like Steve's first match, one of his first matches ever. He was just a kid. He was like 16, 15 or something, 17.
Mm-hmm.
He was old enough to.
Yeah, I don't blame Steve in any of this. He's just getting wrapped up in something. He didn't know any better.
I looked at Steve with tears in my eyes almost. I was so upset. I told the guy I would kill him, and I would have. I would have killed him. And because what he was doing is he was driving by Jeff's house really slow on West Hollis Street, and then he would park across the street at Towers. Dave Souza did. He would park across the street at Towers Automotive, facing Jeff's house across the street, and his kids would be like, "There's some guy out there," and Jeff caught him a couple of times, just going by his house, and that to me that's very threatening. To me. So
yeah, it is.
When I heard that, and those little girls, they were tiny. They were, and that's my family, and those little girls are there, and you hear things. You hear things about people. So when I heard that he was doing that, and then he started running opposition and everything else, and then we get into this pizza place, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just shaking my head. I'm looking down at the ground, and then I snapped. Oops.
And then things went dark.
Just when the stories get good with him.
That's how it goes, right? Yeah. You got to wait for part two.
Sorry about that. And, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Can't see you.
Can you see me? Am I okay?
No, we can't see you.
I can't see you. You never look better.
Oh, I can see you guys. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, so I don't know exactly at what point, but I lost it, and I stood up and I ripped up my license, did exactly what Mav said, but it was because of the threatening nature of what he was doing, and
I never knew that end of it.
The running against this thing was also pretty shitty, because you
Yeah.
had some kids. It was a pretty shitty thing to do, and tearing down posters and everything else. But it was the reason I would have killed him, and they would have found Jimmy Hoffa before they found his body, is because of that. His threatening nature against Jeff and his family. And it was no physical threat, but it was definitely a threat nonetheless. So
Nobody needs it. Nobody needs that hanging over their heads.
yeah,
I'd be
but
pretty upset too.
I remember looking at Steve and I almost tears in my eyes after I lost it, and I was yelling at this guy. I stood up and I was ready to get him, and I looked at him and I was almost crying. I said, "How can you do this, Steve?" I said, "You know this. You know Jeff.
Mhm.
How can you be involved with this man you're next to? I don't even understand it." And then at that point, Maverick came and grabbed me from behind, and he kind of brought me back to the bar. There was like a counter at the bar there, and we sat like 6, 7 stools down, just him and Mav and I. And then I think at one point Mav might have went back to the conversation because we needed to have some clear
Resolution.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Mav went back, and I was just sitting there by myself, stewing at this table, this countertop in Manchester, and Bobby Steven came over to me, and he tapped me on the back, and he says, you're a good friend, you're a good man. Don't worry about it. You'll be all right. You'll be all right, kid. You'll be all right." Tapped me on the back, and then Jeff came over and he said, I straightened it out with the commissioner. You're all set. He said, he said to Bobby, he's like, Jeff said to Bobby, he says, these kids, these fighters, you know how these fighters get, Bobby. They're emotional. And then Bobby, Jeff told me, he says, Bobby was nodding his head going, "Oh yeah, no, I know. We get them, they get emotional. It's okay, I understand." So he took care of that for me, because I literally tore up my license to wrestle in the state of New Hampshire in front of the boxing and wrestling commissioner, threw it in the face of an opposing promoter, and said, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." And I still had my license the next show. Quite amazing.
These are only the things that could happen with Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff was just because even it sounds like violent, but I mean some of the fun you could just have with him, just hanging out with him at a pizza shop, making fun of all the clientele that walked in.
Oh yeah.
You
Look
know,
at this dude. Yeah.
oh yeah. Especially if Kevin was around, then it really got then you could have stories about Cheerzuck and Fearzuckers and
Oh yeah. Yeah. We could do an entire show on just Kevin Hughes.
yeah.
Who's the mental midget with 2 section D's? Remember that one?
The winner of that match, Johnny Vegas, that cheating bastard. He ring announce like that. That's how I do the ring announcing.
Yeah. Yep. Oh
So,
my
Rip,
God. So
before I
I guess
go to
the
the-
bottom line when it comes to Jeff Costa, I love him.
Yeah, me too. It's hard not to.
So, Mav, next question is for you. WWF 1993, you'd appear on Wrestling Challenge, Nova Scotia, Canada, against Mr. Hughes, Curtis Hughes. Any memories from that trip and wrestling him?
So that was a Nova Scotia trip. I went up there and I did my first TV job ever with Matt Bourne doing the Doink gimmick. And I was so nervous and so tired. I'd driven like 16 hours straight to get up to Nova Scotia, and I sucked. And Matt Bourne beat the shit out of me, frankly. And I don't blame him because I was horrible, So next night up, now I get. I think the next night up, I get Mr. Hughes somewhere up there. And I go, boy. Him I did fine with. He liked to do that big boot spot. And I took a bump and rolled out to the ring apron. And he started screaming at me. And the ref told him, but the ref got in his way. And it was like, he's trying to put you over. What is your problem? And then he calmed down a little. He was fine. I know he's a narcoleptic. He didn't fall asleep during the match. That's good. I mean, honestly, that whole thing of doing jobs on TV, I bring this up a lot. Rip's probably heard me probably say this before. There were a lot of guys in this area in the early 90s that did TV. And the truth of the matter is business was very, very down at that point. So they had taken and moved all the TV tapings to the East Coast. So very frankly, if you had a pair of trunks and a pair of boots and you claimed you were a wrestler, you're going to get on you could get on TV one time. And the reason I always bring that up because I still come across every once in a while somebody my age who did some jobs on TV, and all of a sudden they're like the biggest pro you ever heard of, and I'm an ex WWE guy, and it's like, no, you're not. I spent more time there than you did. And I'm not. Is it? I've always said that you never really you get over being starstruck once you're struck by the stars. I mean, they had the same weaknesses and problems that everybody else did on a smaller show, you know. It's just more money involved.
Right. That same year, you'd go on to work with Fatu, Samu, the Head Shrinkers, another episode of Challenge, and you team up with the late Ralph Mosca. Any memories of Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph, they threw out of the ring, and he was supposed to take the finish, and he kept screwing something up, so they threw him into the corner and said, bring him back in here. They were the scariest people you ever wanted to meet in a dressing room. As far as I'm concerned,
nicest out of the dressing room, though.
I had to go. No, they were really nice. I just shouldn't say that, but the intimidation factor with those guys were great because it was him, and of course, at the time Yokozuna was alive, and was it Alpha or Sika that was managing them? I don't remember which, but I think
Alpha.
They had their own dressing room because Yokozuna was champion. He had his own dressing room. They do it that way. So I was told to go in there and talk to them about my match. Well, apparently between them, they had ordered about 40 lobsters. So I went into their wrestling room to go talk to them, and all you could hear as I'm coming in is crunch, crunch, crunch. Both from them were literally biting into the lobster shells. They're not cracking them open. And then they're throwing the shells on the ground, and the other crunching is from me walking over all the shells, which got stuck in my boots. I actually I think I sliced the mat open with a lobster shell sticking out of my boot that night.
Man.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. But so you do the match, and I never found those matches hard. I got to be honest with you. As long as you can bump and sell, you can do a job match. It's not that tough, So, but we got back, and I know he had screwed up, and I hadn't, because what a weird thing. It was like all four of them, they would turn to me, oh, brother, thank you, you do such a good job for you. Then they turn to him and go, oh, brother, you piece of shit. What the hell you doing? You fuck up all night.
Wow.
And yeah.
So when it comes to payday and stuff, who's handling the paydays? Is it still Arnie Skulden, or is it Dave Hebner?
At that point, on TVs, it was more of a staff of accountants. So you weren't getting it from one guy. You actually had a lineup of guys with a bank of computers sitting there doing the paydays. And I think they did it that way because they brought in so many extras that, who's going to pay him? Chief J? I mean, he's no offense to Chief J. He's going to be too busy to be, keep a track of the 42 guys that came in, to do jobs. So they left that to the bean counters,
Gotcha.
So you literally just show up and you go up the computer and they hand you a check, And it was $150 a shot at that time. It wasn't huge money, but like I said before, they weren't making money. So, and those guys, of course, famously, they did TV for free because it was supposed to be their advertising. So they'd see us all lining up to go get our checks, and they'd be like growling at us. It was like, dude, you already beat the shit out of me. Can you stop growling at me, please? That's enough.
Yeah, you're just the middleman. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm just here for my $150, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
So when it came to road agents, who were some of the road agents that you worked with that were assigned to your matches over the years?
Well, assigned is, I think we're looking at this a little,
or overlooked.
Yeah. They kind of went, okay, he's alive. No, I can't say that. They'd have a little influence. Usually when you did jobs, if you did them for a while, guys would form relationships with one or another, or they'd get to be a little more familiar. With me, it was an old childhood hero. It was Tony Gurria, actually. Like he probably saved my life a couple of times. They wanted me to work with. They wanted me to work with the Steiners. He's like, no. I don't know why he did that for me. And then Rene Goulet came up to me one day. He was like, "Hey, you work with El Gigante?" Tony Correa went, "No, no, 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 no." I don't know why he liked me, but he did. So
Looking out for you.
yeah. But like I mentioned, Rene Goulet too. Those are probably the two main guys that were handling the job guy duties. The undercard and stuff like that. Those are probably the main guys that I dealt with. I don't know who anybody else dealt with, but typically them.
And Rip, going back to 1997,
Uh-oh.
PLW League Wrestling, another promotion that you would appear in. You worked specifically at one show with the defenseman Derek Mulhan. Any memories of Derek and any memories of PLW as a whole in your time there?
PLW was run by Tommy. Was it
Tommy
Tommy?
Dignan.
Tommy D.
Yeah, and Tommy D. And I got to tell you, he was a guy that just struck me as just unbelievably nice.
Too nice for wrestling.
Too nice.
Too normal for wrestling.
And I mean, I don't even think there was any pay involved for anything because everything they did was a benefit show.
Yeah, everything.
All the money. Like he would even. I hate to think, but I think sometimes he would even eat the money he was paying the ring guy to bring the ring to set up. Because whatever the benefit was, a fireman or a hospital or whatever it was that the benefit was, to him it was like that's where the money goes. So I don't think anybody ever took a payoff just to go there and do PLW. And it was just, I got to be honest with you, for me it was just more for fun because I enjoyed the people I was there with. We had laughs, you know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of pressure. There was no, if there was any type of an angle, it was, it really wasn't, and
nobody got knocked out. Nobody couldn't find their U.S. title.
And I love Derek. Derek has a place in my heart like you don't even know. He's a really good kid, really good kid. And he just lacked confidence. He had ability. He really did. But he couldn't get that confidence up. But when I saw it come out in him, when they put the stupid Jason mask on him, he did that gimmick like amazing. I thought, and I mean, how hard does you think you say? Well, how hard does it have to? Well, let me tell you something. When you have a mask on and you have he had a cloth mask on under that, then he had a regular thick goalie mask type thing, and doing Jason the Slasher gimmick. Yeah. That alone in its own right is tough, right? Then you think, he's going to go out there and be this menacing figure. He pulled it off. For a guy who's like super soft and super sensitive and really nice, he pulled off a psycho killer pretty good.
Didn't he end up doing press work for the Red Sox?
Yeah,
I think that's what he ended up doing.
He used to do a lot of work with the Sox, and whenever I would come home, because I grew up in Seekonk. I grew up in Seekonk, and Derek was right up the road, and he worked at Pawtucket for the Pawtucket Red Sox. That's the AAA organization for the Sox at the time. Whenever I'd come home, and I would if I went home and Derek found out that I went to a Paw Sox game and didn't tell him, he would be mad at me. Because when I was there, he would get me seats behind home plate with the players' wives. That's how I met a good friend of mine, Pork Chop Pugh. Pork Chop Pugh played for the Red Sox, and then he ended up playing in Nashua for the Nashua Pride years later. And he remembered meeting me in Pawtucket like 6 years before that. Wow. And we became good friends. Him and his family own a car dealership. They're really nice people. Anyway, that's a different story. Again, I'm digressing. But as far as Derek goes, fine human being. Nothing I wouldn't do for Derek. If Derek needed a favor, Derek needed anything, he's got it from me, Yep.
So for Derek, basically, Derek's a great individual, like you said, a great man. Went on to do camera work for multiple organizations, even beyond the Paw Sox there. And I think he's done some stuff with the Woo Sox. He's worked with some universities. So he's done a lot of great stuff and still does it to this day. And Tommy Degnan actually went on to become a public announcer, a public addresser for one of the sports teams locally. Can't remember who, but he's doing that now as well. So
unbelievably great kids. Really are nice. They're not kids anymore, but back then,
Right.
That kid does. We're fucking old.
So next question's for the both of you. So what would you say has been the greatest challenge, not in the ring, but as being part of the wrestling industry for either of you? The greatest challenge personally.
Take this one first, Mav.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I don't think I'm wired like other wrestlers. Other wrestlers they'll go work for somebody that is of let's say they're not the most reputable person or the best person, and I understand that they're trying to make a living, or they're trying to get seen, so they're trying to do as many shows as possible, regardless of who it's for. And I always considered the quality of the person I was working for at the same time. I just I'm sorry I got into this, and if I was ever going to make a living at it, it was going to have to hit me like a truck. Okay. Because I was involved in a family business that made money, and there was no need for me to risk getting out of that to take a chance to make the same kind of money in professional wrestling when I was already making it. It didn't make any sense.
More.
I was
You
never
always
going to be
said
Hulk
more.
Hogan. At best I'd be $150,000-$200,000 guy a year, maybe less, considering the standards of the time when I broke in the early '90s. And realistically, I wasn't really making that far off of that working for my father. And that road
narrow that
ruins.
down, Mav. You got to narrow that down. Excuse me, but his father owned a multi-million-dollar roofing company.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking big dollars here. If Mav had decided to just say, I'm done, hang up my trunks, and, delve into the family business, he could have done that and not killed himself. So if he was going to do this, I can imagine, knowing Mav the way I know him, he wasn't going to do it on anybody else's terms but his own.
No, but
please continue.
So, and my big thing was I wanted kids. I wanted a wife. I wanted a kid. I wanted a house. And I knew wrestling was not the greatest environment, especially at that time, for that. It probably seems a little better now, but, back in the early '90s, no thanks. They weren't making that much money to begin with. Yeah, that was the biggest thing with me is I'm wired a little differently mentally than a lot of the other wrestlers. I really am. I do it for different reasons. I'm sure a few of them would accuse me of being a mark, but I don't really care, to be frank with you. I just really believe that they're wired a completely different way than I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess if there's anything such as a typical wrestler, I'm not a typical wrestler. I never was. Just I was always a little strange, even for wrestling. Let's just put it that way. I think Rip would agree with that.
No.
Even by wrestling standards, I was always a little weird.
So 1993, you'd go on to Monday Night Raw, Bash and Booger.
Yep.
Who obviously Mike Shaw, another guy who is certainly familiar with New England. You guys would wrestle at the Manhattan Center, obviously a famous arena within the wrestling industry. For you, what was that experience like, kind of being at the Manhattan Center and being part of it and working with Mike?
What was the Manhattan Center like? Okay. I'll tell you what. So I used to have these red trunks and a pair of red boots and a pair of red knee pads. And I had kind of a little bit of a moppish haircut. So I get in front of the Manhattan Center, waiting in the ring, and all of a sudden this chant started, Bob Backlund Jr. They started chanting Bob Backlund Jr. at me. They had to turn the crowd sound down during the match. It was so loud. It was ridiculous. I remember they started chanting it before we went on TV. I'm sitting there in the crowd. I'm standing there in the ring. I had Jerry Lawler and Vince McMahon literally both looking at me like, what the hell is going on here? And I just shrugged my shoulders. And then it stuck. For a while there, I almost thought they might actually turn me into Bob Backlund Jr. Because every time I show up to a job, hey, it's Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Yeah.
And then they introduced me to Bob. He's like, hey, what do you think? What are you doing? Were you ever in Westminster, Massachusetts, Bob?
Right.
Joe, can you hear me?
And how about Mike Shaw in the ring? How was he to work with?
Like an old glove. To be honest with you, him and Jeff trained together for Kowalski. So that was actually, I met Mike Shaw before I met Jeff, actually. But yeah, it was, Mike was easy. He didn't hurt anybody. He's big. You're not going to move him around the ring that much. But no, he was fine. No, I was, for the most part, everybody was fine. The only one that scared me really was Matt Bourne. So,
Right.
Because, you don't know fear till you've been suplexed in the back of your brain pan by a clown. So
Was Matt tough to deal with behind the scenes as well, or
the very little I did, you could, I hate to be that guy, but you can tell sometimes as soon as you talk to somebody, it's like, ooh, something's going through their brain, and it might be white powder. Yeah, he was very high strung. He looked like he wanted to fight everybody backstage constantly. It was just a mood like Mercury, and that's what I've heard from most people on him. So yeah, but then again, he was a legit shooter. So what the hell was I going to do about it?
Right. So Rip, we talked about the the greatest challenge within the industry. For you personally, the other side of that, the flip side, what was the most rewarding in your career?
Oh man. Having the ability to get my house before I was 30. I wanted to get a house before I was 30. That was like my goal. I mean, as far as like matches, you mean, or personally? I mean,
Just
matches
personally, yeah, outside of the ring.
outside of the ring. My wife, I don't have any children. Um, Believe it or not, never thought I'd make that good of a dad, so I never tried. Um, I figured that things were messed up with the wiring a little too much, so I didn't want to be responsible for bringing a poor kid into this fucking train wreck of a mind, So I never did. But I would say the things that I'm most fortunate are my wife and just having a roof over my head. I'm pretty simple when it comes to things.
And Mav, what would you say has been the most rewarding for you within the wrestling industry on the other side of it?
Within the wrestling industry,
Yeah.
I can say fully, I would have never had. When Rip first met me and I was acting like a complete asshole, I had some pretty bad self-esteem issues, which is why I was so loud and belligerent. Between not just wrestling, but wrestling with good people, like Rip, and like Jeff, like Sonny Goodspeed, and even Bob, who is a good person primarily. Even though I want to punch him in the face every once in a while. And Rob Bath and guys, I got to wrestle with guys that were good physically and good people at the same time. And I told you I wasn't wired like other wrestlers. Well, honestly, neither were most of the guys I was working with. If I'm being completely frank, the people that I worked with, they weren't all showboaty, and they weren't all, everything was a selfish pursuit for them. And that gave me a lot of confidence, and it carried through in my normal life. I mean, I wouldn't have had any confidence if I didn't get into professional wrestling, to be honest with you, because I can always look at it like, well, even if I wasn't the best at it, I did something that 98% of people don't have the balls to do. So,
Yep.
And I'll always hold that. I'll always hold that proud, as long as I can remember it. The CTE is something else.
Yeah. I suffer from craft.
Craft.
Yeah, can't remember a fucking thing.
Okay.
Thought you were getting cheesy for a minute there. Let's talk about basically when it comes to advice. We'll start with Rip. What was the best piece of advice that you've ever received within the wrestling industry?
It was simple from Jeff. He basically it was kind of advice given, but more instilled. He he basically said, he could see that I was young, I was impressionable, I was fairly new to the industry, the business, and he pulled me aside. He said, "Listen, I see the people you're friends with. I'm friends with them. You're friends with them." He says, "But don't follow their path on their
Mhm.
lead. Be your own man." He says, he says you're better. You're better than some of the things that were going on, and they were trivial things, Joe. When I say things, I don't mean like these are not life altering things, but they could be. In other words, it was how you perceived your attitude, how your work ethic was. Um, it was like you would notice some guys, and I'm not going to get into names because there's no reason to, but they would watch pay-per-views and stuff, and I would be invited over, and there would be a whole group, a gaggle of boys, workers, everything else, and there'd be certain crowds of the guys there, and they're like critiquing matches of guys that are on pay-per-view making
Mhm.
in front of millions of people, and they're critiquing, oh, that was screwed up or effed up, and oh, that sucked, or this and that, and blah 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 blah. And Jeff would be there sometimes, and he noticed me starting to throw a couple out, because when you're with your friends, you kind of thing. He's like, listen, he says, you're better than that. He says, don't do that. He said, those guys have paid their dues. They've worked hard. They're on pay-per-view. They're on TV every week. He says, regardless, he says, don't do that. He says, you're better than that. So that was like the first bit of advice, because then it was like I stopped watching wrestling altogether at that point. I didn't watch it. I didn't read the rag sheets. They used to have those Meltzer rag sheets floating around. Anytime I saw those in the gym, I would say, put that shit away. Enough of that.
Yeah.
Let's go. So when I was training guys, the first thing I would say is, guys would come in and they would be like, they know it all because they've seen it on TV, right? So you're working with them. First thing I do is I'd lower the ropes so they were drooping like this. So first thing kids want to do when they get in the ring is do what?
On
Hit
the
the
ropes.
ropes, right? So you
Right.
lower those ropes or take them down, and I would hate guys that would be the know-it-alls. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Be like, okay, well, when you lock up, you want to do this and do this and do this. Oh, yeah, I know. No, you don't know. That's why you're paying me to teach you, because you don't know.
Yeah.
So the biggest piece of advice I got was from Jeff about respecting the business, respecting yourself, and being a decent human being. And a lot of that came natural, so it wasn't a hard transition for me, but it was a nice swift kick in the ass, because, you know, after about 3-4 years, and you're the Boston Bulldog, the tag team champion of whatever, or
Yeah, start buying your own shit.
you start paying yourself and buying your own bag. You start shitting in a bag and you start buying your own shit. You start believing that a little too much. You know what? You're nobody. And he told me years later, I laughed about it because I never really took those things serious. Doing it, like when we would have a match and someone had to do a job, I had never had a problem doing a job for any of these guys. None of them. Some guys would actually well, I don't want to do it that way. Why are we going to do it that way? Dude, I don't give a shit if you pin me, sunset, flip me, kick me in the balls, have your grandmother hit me with a purse. I don't care. You know what I mean? As long as the fans were entertained, that's all I cared about. But there were guys at our level that were kind of like, I don't want to pin that way. Sure, I'll do that. No, so I don't know. Just not, like I always just say is, guys in the business, Joe, a lot of them had a feeling of greater self-worth and importance. They felt that they had a greater self-worth or importance level over somebody else next to them. A lot
Absolutely.
of guys had that. And I
Absolutely.
made sure that after I talked to Jeff, that was made clear to me
Mhm.
that you are not to be one of them. if you want to have any success in this business. So that's why I left with no unfinished business. Like, I didn't have a problem. When it was time to hang them up, I hung them up. I gave my boots to one of my best friends. I gave one of my masks that I used as I wrestled as, under the various aliases over the years, to another friend, just as a token of like, I don't have unfortunately, I should have done a better job. And Jeff did tell me this, and this is one bit of advice I screwed up. He said, you don't save anything. You don't have any pictures of yourself in your gear or your belts or pictures of, billet boards of, when you were on the billet, on the poster thing. And you're gonna want to look at that and as when you're older. You're gonna want to reminisce a little bit. And I never kept anything. I just never did.
That too.
Yeah, and so that was one bit of advice. He was absolutely right, because it would be nice to have an "I love you" wall, "I love me" wall, with a couple of nice things up there. I mean, the most I kept is a couple of bloody pictures, I think, of me and Mav. Those are the most things I've kept that I was like, that's pretty cool, man. That's a great bleed right there. And Mav still has me beat. Mav's got the king of all bleeds. I think I sent you the picture. It was like, ugh. Oh yeah, that was the best. That was the absolute best. Probably not for him. He probably felt like shit the next day. Right. He hit a vein that day. He hit like 2 or 3 fucking veins that day, man.
Well, that was because
of completely the whole face. There was no skin available. It was just a whole. It looked like a movie prop. To be honest with you. Like, I didn't think anybody could actually get that clean of a bleed to cover every square inch of your face and your neck. It was on his neck. Like, down here. Yeah. I think it was puddling in his ears because he couldn't hear shit.
Well, you know what happened was I had only done that one time before, and I did a lousy job at it. I had like little cat scratches on my head.
Yep.
So somebody before I went out there, it was not Rip. It was somebody else.
Stick and see.
No, it was somebody said, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Go out there and get a couple little kitty cat scratches again?" I was like, "Oh, I'm the wrong guy to challenge." Yeah. Oh, I'll show you. And I probably went from here to about 6 inches back, and I went nuts.
Man,
I got one for you. I bet you've never done this. Aside from New Jack, I'm probably the only guy that cut a guy.
Really? There's not too many. I've never done that. No.
Yeah, I remember.
Really?
What was his name? Tarzan.
Really?
And Big Dave. He was too chicken. He couldn't do it himself.
Yeah.
So when he was out there, he asked me to do it for him.
Oh God!
I made the stick and everything, and I just when the ref wasn't looking, but I just stabbed that prick from here and here. Whoa! I opened him right up.
Is that Tarzan Taylor?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It takes a certain friend that you can rely on to cut you.
Cut me open.
Bleed me, baby, bleed me. Cut me, Mick. Cut me, Rip. Cut me.
Jeez.
And Mav, how about you? Best advice received?
Bob Backlund. You know why? I asked him one time. I went up and said, "How come you don't wear wrist tape like all the other guys?" And he looked at me and he said, "Because it says in the NWA rule book that wrist tape is illegal." And he walked away. That's the best advice I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh,
good point.
No, I took that more as, you know what? You don't have to take everything you're doing here so goddamn seriously.
Yeah.
And that was from him. He was a dedicated individual,
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody took it seriously, it was Bob Backlund, that's for sure.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then he got mad at me because I didn't know all the states. So, but whatever.
So
but
Rip,
no, that was pretty much, seriously. I did big advice. No, not really, not big advice. No, no. Silly stuff, an accumulation of knowledge. Yeah, that's more what I was into.
Sometimes it's the little things, the smaller things that you remember,
Mm-hmm.
So Rip, let's talk about your partner for a long time, the other half of the Boston Bulldogs, Johnny Royal, maybe some memories of Johnny Royal and how you guys kind of linked up for that first time.
Rob Veth is just a likable guy, He he was like he knew more about wrestling than probably anybody I've ever met. I mean, he knew dates, he knew arenas, he knew matches, and he knew holds, man. He really did know his holds, and he knew, and he was way more, I would say, wrestling IQ wise above me. I was a power guy. I could lift things, I could throw people, and I could do it safely for the most part. I don't recall I've ever like hurt anybody seriously. I mean, bloody nose here or there or something by accident maybe, but nobody seriously. And I've done some really, I mean, stuff off the top rope, over into floors I've done a lot of stuff, and I've never hurt anybody. That was like something that I took pride in. That and all the time that I was head of any type of ring setup or ring crew, I've never had a malfunction with a ring where it caused somebody's injury, and I've never injured anybody in the ring. So that was always kind of a hang your hat on type deal. But as far as Rob goes, God, he just knew everything, man. He was a guy that we lived together. We were roommates for a long time, and he was like the half of the team that made it work, because he was like the straight man, and I was like the funny guy. I was the clown. I was the idiot, and he was the straight guy. He was the, I'm the reputable. I don't know if reputable is the word, but and I told him that I would drink sometimes because, like I told you, I had a lot of things still going on from the war and stuff in my head, and I would sometimes drink to excess. I'll be honest with you. I had these Chinese fighting stars I had lined up. Oh, poor Rob. He was into music, and poor Rob, as my roommate, I lined up his CDs in like a fashion, and I said, "Watch, I could throw this." I was drunk as hell. I could throw this Chinese star and stick it in the wall. My landlord wasn't real happy with us when we left, but I would line up his cassette cases and his stuff, and I'd I could throw it right in the middle, and I would hit him, and they'd blast into a million pieces, and plastic and DVDs and stuff went flying. Rob, he'd get mad at me, but at the same time, he knew I suffered, with some demons, and he was okay. He was always all right with me afterwards. He always was accepting of me, and I was accepting of him as a person. We were good friends a long time. But Rob could do just about anything in that ring, man. Really. There were some bumps that he did or stuff, and some bumps that I didn't do, and some bumps he didn't do, but together, when you put us together, we meshed well. It was just we hit it off well. It was like a Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello. Yeah. He was the straight man, and I was the idiot, and it worked out. It was
a couple more stats for the fans. WWF Superstars 1993, Mav. You would go on to team up with Dan Dubiel against the Quebecers. There was another occasion on Challenge from 93 where you would go against Adam Bomb, Brian Clark.
That's where you take a power bomb. And it was just finished.
Working with a variety of stars like this, how do you, as a pro wrestler, how do you adapt to working with so many different styles within the wrestling world?
Well, it's all about respecting everybody's boundaries. It really is, to be honest with you. And of course, some slap happy like me on the New England independent scene, who's making $40 to go lock up with one of these guys. They're probably not going to want to risk their life doing a bunch of fancy moves with me, which I understand because they don't know who the hell I am, and I get that. So you had to deal with that differently. Outside of television, the television guys, for the most part, I hate to say it, for years I avoided trying to work with them And until Jeff finally started bringing guys like Greg Valentine and stuff, and then I got over it and just had good matches with guys like that. But it's all different because I've been in every aspect. I've been I've trained people. You have to treat students a lot differently. I could say I would not want to train anybody today. The world is entirely too sensitive, and the way me and Rip were shown how to do things, they canceled. I think they might throw you in jail. So, but which was a tough when I came back to it when I was older. That made it tough. That was tougher because I hate to say it this way, but we've become more sensitive as a society, and so have the wrestlers, which makes me scoff a little because I don't think you should be all that sensitive if you're a professional wrestler. I think you have to get that out of your system,
Don't
But
take it personal, kid.
no, I learned how to deal with people basically by watching two people, Rip and Jeff. Rip, I knew I acted like an asshole sometimes, so I kind of purloined a bit of his personality. I saw that he treated people well, and he didn't talk to them like he was an asshole. So he get along with people better. But then I used to watch Jeff, and I always bring up this famous line about Jeff, where Bob Evans once accused him of throwing compliments around like they were manhole covers. Now, in today's environment, everybody's big into positive reaffirmance and positive reinforcements, and everybody's going to be complimented on something. And even if you're being told you're doing something wrong, usually they do the compliment sandwich, where they tell you they did something right, what you did wrong in the middle, and then they follow up with something nice.
Yeah.
If you learn from Jeff Costa, you learned to eat a shit sandwich. Okay. And he would just look at you, what the fuck was that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard that more often than not. But every once in a while, you'd get to the back and he'd grab you and he would compliment you. And it would be like a meaningful compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave me one of the best compliments I ever had. I got done with a match with him. Two of them, actually. I got done with a match with him in Derry, New Hampshire. And we got to the back, and he did it in front of all the guys. He just said, boys, that was a New York main event right there. And then about a year later, we did it again in St. Stan's, or maybe a couple of years later, and he came back and said, that one was even better. Yep, that one was even better. Yep. And it's like, I got two compliments inside of 2 years, and they meant more than, that body slam looked okay. I was just like, that's an experienced guy telling me, you're good at this, kid. You're good at this, and that's a compliment that means something, if my clothesline's a little off, I don't care. If somebody who knows what they're doing has been doing it for 3 decades and made a living at it comes up and tells me you did very well out there, I value that, and I didn't give out compliments as rarely as Jeff did, but I believed in that system. It's like, how many compliments do you want? You're supposed to be good at this. Yeah. If I got to keep telling you you're good at it, chances are you don't think you're good at it. So,
Sure.
Yeah. And that's how I treated people. And sometimes I think people were taken aback by that. It's like, well, you never you're not building me up. I'm like, why? You build yourself up. Seriously.
You got your mom and dad for that, or your wife or your girlfriend.
Yeah.
The wives and girlfriends were the worst, man, because they would always try to puff up their boyfriend or their husband, like, "Oh, you're way better than that guy."
I think that depends on the significant other.
Not all of them.
No, mine was usually pretty honest with me.
Yeah, mine hated wrestling, so
mine would tell me things like, "You should probably wear a pair of trunks underneath that. We can see what religion you are."
I remember that.
Yep, pair of white trunks, no under trunks. Bad idea.
Well, I thank you guys. I appreciate you being here. We definitely got to get you guys back for part 2, like we were talking about. And thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
My
pleasure.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for being patient with my lack of technological knowledge. I did manage to get it on.
No problem at all. It's been my pleasure to have you guys. And like I said, part 2 in the near future for the Bulldog, Rip Morrison from Maverick Wild. I am Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you, the fans. And we'll see you all next time.